The laundromat on Dunbar Street smelled like fabric softener and old coffee, and on a Tuesday evening in late November, it was the kind of place nobody wanted to be. The fluorescent light above the second dryer flickered every few seconds. Not enough to fix, just enough to notice. Outside, the rain came down in that flat, steady way that feels less like weather and more like a decision the sky made and refuses to take back. Colton Reeves sat in one of the plastic chairs near the window, watching his daughter's clothes tumble in the dryer. He'd been up since 5. He would be up again at 5 tomorrow. That was just how it worked now. He was 38, though he looked closer to 44 on nights like this. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fully fix. The kind that builds up in the corners of your eyes and the set of your jaw, and doesn't really leave until something in your life actually changes. His daughter, Poppy, was 7. She was with his neighbor Agnes right now. Probably eating crackers and watching something on Agnes's old laptop. Which is what happened on laundry nights, because Colton couldn't afford the babysitter anymore, and Agnes was kind enough not to make him feel bad about asking. He had a coffee from the Tim Hortons 2 blocks over. Double, the cup already going cold in his hands. He hadn't taken more than 2 sips. He was doing the math in his head again. The thing he did constantly now, like a song stuck on loop. Rent was due Friday. The dryer at home had broken 3 weeks ago and the landlord still hadn't fixed it. Poppy needed new winter boots. The ones she had were from last year, and her toes were nearly at the end. His shift at the warehouse had been cut from 5 days to 4, starting next week. He'd done the math every which way, and it kept coming out the same. He wasn't looking for sympathy. He wasn't even particularly looking for help. He'd grown up in a family where you handled things quietly, and you didn't make your problems other people's problems. And that instinct was still in him, deep and stubborn. But that night, sitting in the laundromat with cold coffee and a dryer load of small pink socks, and a bluey sweatshirt that Poppy had worn 3 days in a row, the weight of it was harder to ignore than usual. The door opened and a woman came in, shaking the rain off a grocery bag she was using as an umbrella. She was maybe 60. Wearing a yellow rain jacket that had seen better decades, and she hauled a mesh bag of laundry over to the machine in the corner without looking at anyone. Colton noticed her the way you notice people in quiet places, briefly, without meaning to. A few minutes passed. The dryer kept turning. The light above machine 2 kept flickering. Then the door opened again, and this time it was a boy. He was maybe 10 or 11. Small for his age. Wearing a rain jacket that wasn't quite closed all the way, and running shoes that were soaked through. He had dark hair plastered to his forehead, and he was breathing a little fast, like he'd been walking quickly in the cold. He stood just inside the door and looked around the laundromat the way a kid looks around a place when he's trying to figure out if it's safe. Colton watched him without staring. Something about the boy's posture, shoulders up, chin slightly down, the way he clutched a small backpack to his chest with both hands, reminded him of Poppy on her first day at a new school. That particular kind of bravery that looks almost like fear. The boy walked slowly toward the row of plastic chairs. He sat down 2 seats away from Colton, set his backpack carefully on the floor, and then just sat there. Not on a phone, not reading anything, just sitting. After a minute, Colton looked over. The boy was staring at the floor. His shoes were leaving small puddles on the linoleum. Colton looked back at his coffee, looked at the dryer, looked back at the boy. "You waiting on laundry?" he asked. The boy looked up. He shook his head just barely. Colton nodded slowly. He didn't push, but he didn't look away either, just kept his posture open, the way you do when you want someone to know the door's still there if they want to use it. It was maybe 90 seconds before the boy spoke. "My mom's outside," he said quietly. She didn't want to come in." Colton looked at the door. Through the window he could see the outline of someone standing just under the overhang. Out of the direct rain but not by much. A woman, arms crossed, looking away from the door. "It's pretty wet out there," Colton said. The boy glanced at his backpack. Then back up at Colton. He had brown eyes that were a little too serious for his age. The kind of eyes that have been paying attention to things kids probably shouldn't have to pay attention to. "She sent me in to ask," he said. Then he stopped. Colton waited. "We don't." The boy started, then tried again. "The machines cost money and we don't have." He pressed his lips together for a second. "She needs to wash her work clothes for tomorrow. She has a job interview, a real one." He said real one the way kids say things when they've heard adults say it many times and understand it matters, even if they can't fully explain why. Colton felt the sentence land somewhere behind his sternum. He thought about Poppy. He thought about all the times he'd had to explain things to her that he wished she didn't have to understand yet. He thought about what it takes for a kid to walk into a room full of strangers and say something that hard. He reached into his jacket pocket. He had 2 toonies and some change. He'd loaded the dryer earlier with what he needed and had a little left. He held them out toward the boy. "This should run a load," he said. "Maybe a bit left over." The boy stared at the coins like he wasn't sure he was allowed to take them. "Go ahead," Colton said. "It's all right." The boy took the coins carefully, the way Poppy took her lunch from him, on hard mornings. Grateful and a little fragile at the same time. He stood up and went back to the door and pushed it open, and Colton could hear his voice low and quick out in the rain. A moment later, the woman came inside. She was maybe mid-30s, wearing a dark coat that had been rained on too many times. Her hair pulled back tightly. She was carrying a canvas tote bag against her chest, and she walked to the machines the way people walk, when they're trying very hard to look normal. Her son was right beside her, pointing out which machine had the right settings. Colton watched her feed the coins in. He watched her hands. They were steady, but her jaw was tight. She got the machine running, and then stood back and stared at it, and in that moment, between one breath and the next, something in her face slipped. Not much. Just enough, the particular expression of someone who has been holding it together for a long time, and knows they have to keep holding it and is just, for 2 seconds, so tired. Her son didn't see it. He was already looking at a poster on the wall, about lint fire hazards with the focused interest only certain 10-year-olds have for informational signage. Colton looked away. He didn't want her to feel watched. He got up and refilled his coffee from the little machine near the door. Terrible coffee, worse than Tim's, but it was something to do. On the way back, he paused near the machine where her clothes were running. "First one's free," he said quietly, nodding at the dryer at the end of the row. "It runs fine, just don't tell the owner I said so." He paused. "For when they're done." She looked at him. For a second she seemed like she might say something sharp, that instinct that kicks in when you've had to defend your dignity too many times. But then she didn't. She just nodded once, very slightly. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was even. Controlled. Colton nodded and went back to his chair. They sat in the same quiet for a while. The rain outside didn't let up. The machines hummed. The boy had moved on from the lint poster, and was now examining the lost and found bin in the corner with deep archaeological commitment, holding up a single green mitten and studying it like evidence. After a while, the woman sat down, not right next to Colton, a few seats down, the way people sit in waiting rooms when they don't know each other, but the space allows for proximity without obligation. Her son brought her the green mitten. "Somebody lost this," he said seriously. "Someone did," she agreed. "We should put it somewhere more visible," he said, "in case they come back for it." She looked at him for a moment. Something in her expression went soft in a way that seemed private, the way parents look at their kids when the kid can't see them doing it. She took the mitten and set it on top of the machine in the corner, where the light was better. "Good thinking, Theo," she said. The boy, Theo, looked satisfied. He sat down beside her and pulled a slightly bent granola bar from his jacket pocket and offered her half. She took it without making a fuss, which told Colton this was a practiced exchange between them. He ate his half standing up, looking at the window, narrating the rain to himself quietly in the way kids do when they're thinking out loud and don't care if anyone hears. Colton's dryer buzzed. He started pulling the clothes out and folding them into the laundry bag. He wasn't a great folder. Poppy's shirts came out a little lumpy. He'd learned early that nobody really cares how kids' clothes are folded as long as they're clean and in the drawer, and he'd made peace with that. He heard the woman's machine stop. Heard the silence where the hum had been. He didn't say anything. He just pointed at the free dryer as he zipped up his bag. She hesitated for just a beat. Then she moved her clothes over without a word, and the dryer started up, and something in the room's small ecosystem shifted. Not dramatically, not in any way that would show up in a story about dramatic moments. Just a small, quiet shift in the direction of okay. Colton put on his jacket. He picked up his laundry bag. On his way past, he stopped at the little wooden bench near the door, where people left things. A worn paperback once. A phone charger cable, an umbrella that had been there for weeks. He reached into his wallet. He had a 20 and a 5. He looked at it for a second. He thought about Poppy's boots. He thought about the math that never came out right. Then he folded the 20 and set it under the edge of the lost and found bin, just visible enough that she'd see it when she came to check on Theo's mitten placement. Not conspicuous, not a big gesture. Just there. He pulled his collar up and pushed out into the rain. The walk home was 6 blocks and cold, and the laundry bag was heavier than it looked. He passed the Pakistani restaurant that always smelled incredible, and the bus shelter where someone had taped a handmade lost cat poster to the glass. He passed the church that ran the Tuesday food bank and the hardware store, where he'd bought the cheap draft stopper for the front door because the cold came under it, Bad in December. He thought about Poppy. He thought about the night, 2 years ago, when he'd been the one standing outside something, trying to figure out how to walk in. Different building, different city, same geometry of it. That particular shape of being on the wrong side of something, and not knowing how to cross. Someone had helped him then. He didn't always let himself think about that, because it made his chest do something uncomfortable. But he thought about it tonight, in the rain, and let it sit there. When he got back to Agnes's apartment, Poppy was asleep on the couch with a fleece blanket tucked up to her chin and an empty plate with cracker crumbs on the coffee table beside her. Agnes was knitting in the armchair with the lamp on low. Out cold 20 minutes ago, Agnes said, not looking up from her needles. She fought it hard. She always fights it, Colton said. He set the laundry bag down and stood there for a moment looking at Poppy. Her mouth was slightly open. One sock had come off. Her hair was doing the thing it did when she slept, where it fanned out in every direction. With complete disregard for gravity, he crouched down and tucked the sock back on, very carefully, the way you do things when someone is sleeping and you don't want to wake them, but you also just need to do something with your hands. With the feeling. Then he picked her up, laundry bag over his shoulder, and carried her home through the rain. She was getting too heavy for this almost. Another year and it would be too far. But not yet. She stirred once, halfway down the block, and murmured something into his shoulder that wasn't quite a word. "I've got you," he said quietly. "Go back to sleep." She did. Back in the laundromat, after Colton left, Theo found Detective to check on the mitten. He brought it to his mother with his brow furrowed, like a small detective presenting evidence. She looked at the bill for a long time. She looked at the door. She looked down at Theo. "He just left it?" Theo asked. "Yeah," she said. Her voice was different now, not controlled. Just quiet. "Why?" She thought about that for a moment. Outside the rain was finally starting to let up, not stopping exactly, but softening, that change in sound when a downpour becomes something more manageable. Because he could, she said. Theo considered this with the thoroughness he applied to all things. He looked at the mitten still sitting on the machine in the better light. "Do you think he has kids?" he asked. She thought about the laundry bag. The small shirts folded inside it, the imperfect way they'd been stacked. The way the man had moved through the room. Carefully, without taking up too much space, the particular practiced quietness of someone used to working around a small sleeping person. "Yeah," she said, "I think he does." Theo nodded like this explained something. He took her hand, the one not holding the 20, and they stood together in the warm light while the last cycle ran, the rain tapping soft and steady against the glass, the night outside going from heavy to something almost bearable. Her name was Vivian. No, her name was Dara Sutcliffe, and she had a job interview at 8 in the morning, and her work clothes were almost dry. And her son was holding her hand, and outside the rain was easing up, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that's enough to keep going. Colton got home, put Poppy to bed, and stood in the kitchen for a minute in the quiet. He didn't feel like a hero. He didn't feel like he'd done something extraordinary. He felt tired in the usual way, and behind on things in the usual way, and not at all sure the math would work out by Friday. But somewhere under all of that, just barely, there was something else. Small and stubborn. Something that had been a little dimmer earlier that evening and was slightly less dim now. He filled a glass of water, drank it standing at the sink. Then he went to bed.